don't know. But listen, you know, here we are with the great Mr.
What's his name?
Jim Mullen. No, hold on.
I used to be famous. I used to be quite famous.
Well, what I remembered mostly about you were that you you didn't use a pick.
That's right. Thumb.
Your thumb.
Riding thumb.
Yeah.
You know.
And also you were to me you reminded me a lot of Cornell Dupree.
He was one of my favourites for a long,
No
long time.
wonder, bloody hell, right?
In fact, I had the same guitar as he had, and I used the same pickup selection.
Oh, you're kidding.
I met him, you know.
Yeah.
I met him. I was living in New York for a couple of years in the 70s, and
What, at Mikkel's or something?
yeah,
Oh.
he came along to a gig I was doing in Mikkel's, and he used to play there because he lived right around the corner in
Oh,
West
you
End,
did, yeah.
West End Drive. And I was playing in there, and he and Eric Gale were standing right in front of the band like this. So I was like, guys, it's a sort of Bruce Forsyth moment.
Yeah.
And this is two of my most favourite guitar players in the world, you know, standing right in front of me, and I was playing there, and I was thinking, oh my God, you know, because I mean I played like this guy, you know. I really kind of locked into his style, it's a kind of bluesy style, you know.
Yeah.
And, anyway, came off after the gig, he came up to me and he shook my hand and said, hey man, I love your playing, I want to record one of your songs.
You're kidding.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, that was the thing that freaked me out about New York. The musicians were all so open and like really welcoming. You know, I remember when I first moved to London, it wasn't like that at all. I mean, there was a very two-faced thing. How you doing, man? Bastard. You know, there was a real kind of but the New York guy, hey man, where are you from? You know, and it was like they say that New York cab drivers ask you 4 questions, and within those 4 questions, they've got your whole life right there. You know, what do you do for a living? What are you doing here? You know, blah. In 4 questions, they've got everything. They've got the whole business, and the musicians were really open. I never felt a draft. I mean, I lived there for maybe a year and a half, you know, and I got to play with all the great guys, the Brecken brothers, and all kinds of, fantastic, Dave Sanborn, all these people, you know, and it was great because I felt, it was like Coles to Newcastle. I mean, they're not short of musicians over there, you know, I mean, the best in the world are in New York, and it wasn't like, what are you doing here, sort of, way back to Scotland or something, and stay out of the frying pan kind of thing. But they weren't. They were really welcoming, and I got to play with a lot of people, and it was great. It was a fantastic experience. It really changed my life completely, because I used to go to those loft jam sessions in those big, office buildings. They have a loft, which is a kind of rented apartment. So you're living in a place that has no people there during the night. Perfect for musicians to jam and stuff. I used to go to all those things, ride the subway out to Brooklyn and go to those all-night jam sessions. I got to meet a lot of fantastic musicians, and what really impressed me was the practice. These guys were like serial practicers, and they didn't practice on their strengths. They practiced on their weaknesses. There was a kind of honesty in the American approach to music out there that I found incredibly refreshing. The sort of people I hung out with would minimise their weak points and maximise their good ones. In other words, they'd keep quiet about the things they were bad at and go on about the things they were good at. But these guys out there were saying, I'm terrible at this, I got to practice this shit all the time, I thought, wow, look at how honest these people are, and that really affected me. And I was never a practicer, I was always a kind of a player, I like to play. I figured the only way to stay match fit as a player is to be up there in the bandstand playing every night, and I still feel that in a way, but it did get me practicing and really being much more honest in my approach to music, and that was a big turning point for me, So although I was only there for less than 2 years, it was a fantastic change in attitude that it brought about in me, which I'm very grateful for,
So when did you first hear Ernest Randall?
Oh, when he was at Ronnie's the first time, when he was playing, he was a house guitarist, wasn't he? Yeah, the 60s, yeah.
Oh, were you there?
Yeah, yeah. I used to come, I eventually settled in London in '69, but I used to come down on the bus in the 60s for weekends and stuff, just to check out what was happening. I was working as a journalist in those days, but I loved, hearing the real thing, the music. And Ernest was a real contender, I mean, you couldn't get past this guy at that time. He was a really good jazz guitarist. He had all the West Indian thing as well, but he was a really cultured guitar player. And, you had to take your hat off to him because, he was a major player in those days, and there weren't a lot of great guitar players in this country at that time, He was definitely up there,
So he was very should I say, inspirational. To
Absolutely, very inspirational. I was really glad to meet him through you. Actually, I've still got pictures of him, me, much younger. My hair was dark. This is how far back we're going.
Good looking.
Older and uglier. That's all I can tell you. But we're down in the downstairs bar at Ronnie Scott's, which doesn't exist anymore.
By the way, have you got that picture?
I've got that picture.
Oh yeah, I think I have.
You, me, and Ernest Ranglin, and I think Monty Alexander's in the picture as well. You know, and I think they were playing together. They were doing a kind of jazz reggae thing. You know, and Ernest Ranglin's from Jamaica, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah,
Trinidad.
No, Jamaica.
Monty Alexander. He's,
Jamaica, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a great player. You know, he's a marvelous player too.
I did. I mean, you know, when I was growing up in Jamaica, I mean, you see Ernest and all. Ernest like really killed me. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I played banjo, right?
Right.
And then I played guitar. Then I ended up coming to London and I played bass. And then the bass player went back, and I had to play bass. But Ernest was still in the thing, so I ended up being the musical director for his DVD. I've got to send you one.
Oh wow!
With Monty Alexander and
fantastic.
Richard Bailey.
Oh great!
Yeah,
I saw Richard recently actually. You know,
yeah.
I still see him occasionally. But yeah, it's fantastic, man.
And
yeah.
I think I may have a tape, a thing like the full moon with Ernest and you. Remember?
No.
Were you playing at was it?
I don't know if we ever played together, did we? I don't think we did.
I'm not quite sure, but maybe at the full moon with Ernest.
The half moon.
Half moon, yeah. But anyway, I remember I definitely the picture with you at Ernest.
Yeah, I've got that. It's in my collection. You know.
Yeah, but when I saw who is bloody geezer? He can't afford a pick.
Yeah.
And he was like,
People used to say Scots were so mean. They wouldn't even buy a pick.
This guy was so bloody mean. He couldn't buy a pick.
Well, but you know why that happened?
Theory,
Well, because
reinforcing stereotype.
first of all, there were no guitar teachers in Scotland when I was growing up. Zero.
Yeah.
So, and also I'm left-handed, but I play right-handed. So I'm playing the opposite way. I should be playing this way. So, but because I was left-handed playing right-handed, I would be trying to play with a pick. But of course, it was the most alien thing. It would go flying out of my hand all the
Are you
time.
kidding?
Trying to find it.
You're kidding.
Where is that bloody thing? I said, come on, don't stop, keep playing. So I had to keep playing. And I had no technique with the pick anyway, so I just carried on with my thumb. And it was a bad habit that stuck and didn't get fixed, you know, and I'm still playing that way. This is like 50 years later.
Do you not use your forefinger?
No, just the thumb.
Just the thumb.
All
For
downstrokes.
every-
For everything.
Is your thumb insured, Jim?
No, nothing's insured.
You should.
So I better live to be old, right? You know.
Exactly.
Well, that's funny because, you know, Wes Montgomery.
Yeah. But the difference with Wes is, you know, he had a double jointed thumb. He could move it back as well as forward.
Oh, I didn't know
So he
that.
played up and down strokes with his thumb. But I can only play down strokes, which is 50% of the technique of a pick player. You can play up and down, you know. So I just had to work out a way, and it involves a lot of what's called left-hand hammer-ons and pull-offs. You know, where I might hit one and play three, you know, or I might hit something and pull off and slide off, and so there's a lot. It's a completely bastardized technique, you know. But then again, somebody said to me once, "There's no such thing as legitimate technique on electric guitar. Everybody personalizes it to a degree, you know." So,
Muddy Waters and all those old blues
well,
guys.
yeah. In fact, the blues guys. We've a lot to thank. Every electric guitarist has got a lot to thank the blues guys for, because
people like that.
they didn't know any rules, you know. I mean, these guys were just, you know, it was an instinctive thing for them. But what they did, all the bending, you know, doing vocal effects with the guitar, all the crying,
They just did it, didn't
they just did it. And it gave the guitar a kind of vocal quality that nobody else did up until that time. So all the blues guitarists really expanded the whole vocabulary of the instrument by breaking every rule in the book, because they didn't know that it wasn't.
There was one.
Yeah, there was a rule. Yeah, you know. So everything they did was
They just
natural.
concentrated on making a nice sound. Didn't
Yeah,
they?
and actually that's very important, because we can all talk about technique until the cows come home, but the important thing is, what's the reason you take it out of the case? You know, what is it that drives you to take the instrument out of the case and play music? That's the important thing. What motivates you to try and make music? Technique is secondary. In fact, there's a lot of guys these days who are technical wizards, flying up and down all night long. I mean, just all over the place, all the sweep techniques and all those things.
But no feel.
Exactly.
They don't
I mean,
have.
for me, you know, in fact, I went to see John McLaughlin recently at the Barbican, and he's another guy who, even when he's playing a ballad, he's going to the fast place all the time, you know, and it's like, he's terrified of playing a long note, you know. What's the matter with a long note? Sometimes a long note is a million times better than all this
of course,
fast stuff that does nothing for you, you know. So I mean, everything, it's like you're making a judgment call on everything that you do in music. You know, all the years I've been playing, it's 55 years I've been playing now, you know, since I started. Everything's a judgment call, and it's like, you begin, as you get older, you begin to realise why some music sticks around and other stuff goes away. Because the test of time is that nobody wants to do that anymore. I'm thinking particularly about a lot of the 70s fusion stuff, you know, which nobody wants to hear now because it's so one-dimensional and boring, you know. I want to play something where you can get some emotional connection with it, you know.
That's what you hit the nail on it, emotional, intangible feel thing.
That's what got me into it in the first place. Before I knew one thing about music, I related to it on an emotional level. And I still do, actually. That's the thing that draws me to music, not the technique. The technique I'll try and figure out later, but it's got to be the emotional connection first.
But you know what, with Jim, the technique is something that you can practice. But the emotional thing is something you have to have.
That's got to come from
the
here,
heart,
I think, you know. And some people don't have one of these. They have all the other stuff, but this thing isn't working. It's broke. You know?
Yeah, but anyway, I also met Colonel Dupree. he was buying foam for his bed or something. I was like, Colonel, because I've got a big Colonel Purdy and Chuck Rainey,
all of
Gerald
those guys.
Jamat, all those
Richard T.
from the same